Today I'll be giving a breakdown of the video, why the LGBT movement is failing. And I want to make a breakdown that's beyond the surface level. I don't want to just make a reaction video where I'm just like, how weird, look at this guy, like just ew, like oh my god, how could you do this? Like you want kids to do this too? Like whoa. Like while I agree with all those assessments, I want to make it a bit deeper. Okay, I want to go beyond the surface level and really look at the philosophical, not only grounding, but also flesh out the points each side makes a bit more so you can understand when you're listening to these things why they're actually wrong. Beyond just what you've been told, beyond just what you feel, right? That being said, let's get into it. I'm assuming this is actually a guy. Seems like it.
Some carry hate. We carry the largest trans pride flag to ever be flown in a national park and unfurled it on the side of El Cap to prove a point that trans is natural.
So, flying a flag in the name of your ideology, and it's an ideology, and that's going to be a major point of contention probably throughout this video. I'll probably expand on that more, but raising a flag shows that it is natural. Okay?
Please, tell me what's natural about having to wear a wig and tons of eye makeup to try and get people to treat you like a woman.
The Trump administration and transphobes would love to have you believe that being trans is unnatural, but species that can transition sexes can be found on every continent and in every ocean on planet Earth.
That had...
Yeah, so that assumes animals and humans are in the same category. And that's going to be a major point of contention, and the reason why this deeper philosophical discussion is needed, because on the surface, you can't just say, well, humans and animals are different, because when they press on that, it's kind of like, well, I believe in God, image of God, and it becomes a bigger debate where if you don't know what you're doing, they can actually make a bad argument, right? You're right, but you could give the wrong reason. So the reason why I said ideology earlier is because an ideology is essentially a bigger position, right? And it might deny it, but the truth is that they have all these operating assumptions, which make up the argument that, well, animals and humans are the same, so therefore I can make an argument on different species transitioning, right? We could just deny that on the basis of, well, no, we believe in God, and you get into epistemology, blah, blah, all that other stuff, and you show that humans and animals are in a different category, right? And that's why that would be wrong. Beyond just saying, oh, how ridiculous.
had to be the most disingenuous analogy that I've ever heard. Show me a human male that's become female spontaneously without spending like $100,000 in the operating room. Well, even the surgeries don't change their biology. And just because certain animals can do things doesn't mean that humans can do those things. Some animals aren't sexually dimorphic and the females are just as strong as the males. That's not humans though. There are a lot of differences between the sexes. I mean, I don't think I've seen an analogy this bad since the croissant analogy.
If trans women...
You can tell I don't really watch this stuff, but
aren't women, then is this big croissant not a croissant? Of course it's a croissant. It's made out of butter and dough just like any other croissant.
Right.
I came into this video thinking I was going to give in hard-hitting analysis, but I don't know where to go with that one because that's not even a point. It's
a big croissant and a small croissant are still both croissants. Except that's not what's happening here. You're not a big croissant saying that you're a small one. You're a taco saying, I identify as a pastry.
So before I demolish this delicious and very valid pastry, repeat after me. Big croissants don't affect me in the slightest.
Yeah, that's not the...
Okay, so the point here being made, and this is another very important point. This is why it's ideological, not just a little thing that's a little disagreement. And this is why they've gained so much ground, because how did this all start? Beyond, let's go back within the past, 2008. Okay, Obama's first term, I don't exactly remember when it got legalized, but, the certain type of marriage got legalized. I don't know what YouTube allows, to be honest. I see some people say it and be fine, some other people say it and they get banned, so you know what I'm talking about, okay? Everyone was just like, oh, well, government shouldn't be in marriage, so yeah, I disagree with it, but we should allow it. And that's what all the conservatives were saying. The people who should have stood their ground didn't stand their ground. And now we have this complete disaster on our hands. And the reason why is because we did not legalize gay marriage only, although I don't agree with that, right? What we did is we gave a lot of fuel to an ideology. And the ideology is this ideology that assumes that humans and animals are the same. Okay, there's no difference. Humans are just another form of animal. And because of that, everything that applies to an animal can apply to humans, so they can make these arguments about switching genders and sexes. Oh, gender's not actually a valid concept because it's a social construct. Because remember, if you're like a liberal kind of conservative who lets people do whatever they want, believe whatever they want, you believe in the separation of church and state, you cannot ground gender tied to sex. You can't, because what's the argument for gender being tied to sex? Well, it's God's creation. But the government is supposed to be involved in that. Oh, well, then you can't make a point, legally speaking. So, this is why this ideology has completely just gone right into everything. And this point about, well, it doesn't affect me. It does. It does affect me. Maybe, and it will affect me even more and more and more and more. Because this influences, I mean, let's just even go to the surface level points. It influences the media I watch. You know, movies and all that other stuff, they suck now. Because now they shoehorn all the stuff in the name of inclusion. Stuff that is just, like, I don't want this video to get flagged or hate speech, but like, I don't like the idea of just like two dudes kissing is normal in public now. That does affect me. And you know, about my children, I mean, they're being taught this stuff. Well, I don't have children, but my future children are being taught this. So, and it's also a little bit of an irrelevant point to say it doesn't affect me because I don't believe in a subjectivist worldview where I should only care about things that directly affect me. Right. So, continuing on.
Case. In fact, that's exactly everyone's problem and why people have so much energy against trans activism. We were all just out here minding our own business, and then a bunch of activists started inserting themselves into everything and saying, "You have to treat us how we demand you treat us, or you lose your job." This sort of extortionist behavior is why people are mad at the LGBT crowd.
I'm actually non-binary and use they them pronouns. I definitely could see that. In the best way possible, you look like you'd be non-binary. Slay, they. You realize that isn't a compliment, right?
I guarantee you that when people say that, 99% of the time it's not meant to be a compliment. And that's because as soon as you see the wacky hair color and the nose ring, oh wait, this person actually doesn't have a nose ring. Shocking. But when regular people see the wacky outfits, they know they're about to deal with a very difficult or annoying person. Or a narcissist. I mean, there are just so many examples of people with narcissistic personality disorder being gassed up by every major corporation for identifying as LGBT. And everyone hates stuff like this.
Oh yeah, that's another thing. So, you know, I work with a lot of people about their mind and gym, money, all this different stuff. Like, join the Discord if you want more information on that. It's free. Okay, it's not selling anything, but because I answer questions and stuff on there for free, you know, I'm very active. So if you want to ask me questions, I'm always there. Or even a debate, you know. But, like, another thing that I've noticed very prevalently is that some of the people I work with are in high school, and they talk about how many kids at their school identify with the movement. And you know what that means, right? And I just find it so shocking because when I went to school, I mean, I'm 19, so it's not like I'm so far removed from school. I did go to high school. I went to 6th grade only, because the rest was just homeschool, and I dropped out in like 10th grade, or 11th grade, I don't remember which one. And there weren't any kids who were like this. It's a very new thing, and as you just pointed out, it's so they can feel special. Like, I see so many, they tell me so many stories of people being like this and then switching back around. It's like, you don't actually identify with it. You just want to be unique, want to be cool, because your soul longs for purpose and meaning, which is one of the things I talk about a lot. That's why, if you want to talk about the core of why this movement has come, it's because there's souls that are lost. They're lost and they're searching for a meaning, and they find solace in this movement, which is a false sense of meaning, right? And then I see some like conservatives talk about how it's like, oh, well, it's like a chemical brain issue. No, it's not. Okay, yeah, that can have an impact, but at the end of the day, it's about the non-physical soul. It's about the mind. beyond the physical brain. Okay? That's another thing that I disagree with a lot when people come to criticize their position.
From Today USA, women want to be her, men want to be with her. Dylan Mulvaney, the true definition of beauty and grace. Bro, Dylan Mulvaney doesn't even want to be Dylan Mulvaney. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. Now, I'm sure there are plenty of trans people out there who just want to mind their own business and go on with their lives. In fact, the right to be able to mind their own business was originally what the LGBT movement was pushing for. And I think that's an idea that most Americans these days would have no problem supporting.
Okay, yeah. So there, I disagree with this guy. I'm not really sure. I just saw this on my. I have like a feed of videos to react to, and whenever I see something interesting, I go onto it. But see, that type of reasoning is the exact reason why we are where we are. Now, I'm not calling for violence or like extermination, send them out of the country, but this is like cultural acceptance. Well, it's like the liberal move. It's like, oh, well, it's okay to be that way. Okay, and it's okay. That's a moral implication, right? Because if you say something's okay, then it's possible for it not to be okay, right? That's a moral statement. Morality can't be morality can't be grounded in science, can't be grounded in government, can't be none of that stuff. Okay? Morality at the highest level can only be grounded in God. Right? So it's not okay. All right? It's as not okay as doing something else that's morally wrong but doesn't necessarily affect other people. Right? A lot of the people that talk about this stuff, they have this worldview of, well, as long as you aren't affecting other people, then what you're doing isn't wrong. It's like, well, it's not true. It's like a variation of utilitarian ethics. It's not definitely not compatible with Christianity.
However, the activists, not the normie LGBT people, I'm specifically talking about the activist part of this community, constantly display the most self-centered and entitled behavior.
And I will agree with this, that yes, the activists are definitely more annoying than the other ones, but my argument against LGBT is not that they're annoying, it's that it's morally wrong. And I think that's the only argument that holds any ground in an actual high-level philosophical discussion.
It's not transphobic or bigoted to point out when someone's being a self-absorbed asshole. Let's go back to that image. Women want to be her. Yeah, except for all the women who are pissed off at Dylan's woman face behavior. In fact, people were so mad at Dylan that Anheuser-Busch almost had to give up the Bud Light brand. Men want to be with her. No, they don't. Straight men don't. The second they find out you're trans, you're gonna get ghosted.
This video is for straight men and straight men only. I'm sorry, but how in the world could you not like me? Yes, I'm a trans woman, I'm a doll. Like, what is so different about dating me than a cis woman? She can do everything that she can.
Except how
Definitely don't sound like a woman. Can't have babies.
have children. Did you notice the narcissistic, I'm so great behavior? That's why people don't like you. The guy I was on a date with just found out that I was trans. Why?
Oh, I mean, he doesn't really have good taste even if you weren't, but like, wow. That's tough.
He just finding out on the date. Why wasn't this disclosed on the dating app? I mean, they were definitely using a dating app where photos can be edited and the voice chat wasn't used. Why is it so hard to date straight men when you're just a normal trans girl who makes content for the internet? Well, there you go. Stop catfishing people and maybe you'll find someone who actually likes you.
Again, like, another thing is, I agree with what he's saying there. Like, obviously that's true, but on a different angle, as in what will actually change what's going on. Telling someone that's like telling them, hey, like imagine someone standing in front of a white wall, okay? And they're like, this wall is not white. And you're like, hey, look, and you're just telling them, hey, look, the wall is white. It's like, dude, they can see the wall the same way you can. You're both looking at the same thing. You have completely different conclusions. So you pointing out the wall is white doesn't do anything. What you have to do is delve into the assumptions. Ask them, why is the wall not white? And now you're actually getting somewhere because they have some kind of operating assumption that their worldview hinges on that leads to their absurd conclusion, right? So this is why I think culture, this is why I think God, etc., is really the only way out of this. Because it's the only way to really uproot these assumptions that these people make. It's the only way to change individual people as well.
I mean, it's crazy how many trans people think it's perfectly fine to start a relationship out by lying by omission.
What are you even really disclosing? What is there to disclose? There's no deception. When you're dating someone, you don't
Well, there's definitely no deception with you, okay? But like,
have to disclose every single thing about yourself up front. That's the fun of it. You get to learn about someone new.
Considering that the status of your sexuality is a big deal for a relationship, that definitely should be disclosed before you even go on a date. Though in this case, I actually wouldn't worry because I don't think anyone's being fooled by you.
He shows off his results of facial feminization surgery. What is your reaction? Again, just reading the tweets. Don't get mad at me. Let's take a look at this. Bro, I'm gonna keep it a bug. You gotta go back and ask for a refund. Like, this was not a complete job. This is just incomplete homework.
Though to be honest, some trans people are more feminine than others, and it's harder for normies to tell. So in the case where someone is intentionally tricked and any form of sexual contact happens that they would otherwise not consent to, I think that should be considered sexual assault. These people are all about consent, right? Well, you can't consent if you don't understand the terms of the deal, and if you're trying to trick someone into consenting to something they otherwise would not consent to if they had full knowledge of the terms, then that is very much the mentality of a rapist. You aren't fooling anyone. Everyone knows that you aren't disclosing this information right away for a reason. And really, the best way to continue to take power away from these people so they can't threaten us anymore is to just start calling stuff what it is. All the bullying that trans activists have been doing can completely be defeated if we just stick to reality. Which brings us to a trans TikTok influencer who goes by Lily Tino. Well, this person has already been brought up, but now I have a bigger point to make. If you haven't seen any of the content, this type of stuff is what Tino is famous for.
The bottom is from Thailand?
Coconut bread from Thailand.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Right.
Ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am.
yeah, I feel so bad for this employee. Like, my God.
Sorry, my bad, sir. And
I think this is in a foreign country. Okay. See, like, this doesn't work over there. Most places, it's not liberalized. Like, they like you come in and say, I'm a woman. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? It's kind of like America a long time ago. Like, if you brought up this concept to an American like 100 years ago, they would just be like, they would just start laughing because it's like, yeah, that's a funny joke. You know? Like two guys getting married. It's like, it's funny. Like, that would never happen.
the middle one is from India.
Thank you. It just like totally sucks the joy out of this bread tower. Makes me want to immediately like leave because I no longer feel like safe here. It's like, oh, my guard now has to be up. I'm not going to enjoy this bread as much because my guard is up. We should be able to go places and not
Safe? Feel unsafe? Again, this is like a deeper problem. The reason why he feels unsafe, the reason why he feels all these different ways is not because he got misgendered. He feels all these different ways because the soul is longing for something. Okay? It's longing for some sort of truth. And, you know, this is what he thinks he finds it, but, you know, it's not real. I mean, it's a scam that's sold by certain people that I can't get into in this video. You know, you can join my Discord and you can see some posts I've made about it, but, you know, don't think this has just happened by accident. You know, there's definitely a plan behind these things. There's a reason why this movement got popular beyond people just following it and wanting to feel special. That's what I'll say regarding that, but also, there's a lot of people who are on the other side who don't like this movement that also are searching for soul. So it's not like, what a lot of people don't realize is that you can be right but still be a bot, right? Like, you can make these videos, you can agree with these videos, and you go like, I agree, but you're still in the same position as the other person because you're a result of your circumstances. Like, if you grew up watching a bunch of conservative content, you happen to be a conservative, and then you can't really justify it beyond that point, then you're basically like the other people, right? So that's why I want to make this video about, I guess now it's psychological and philosophical, higher level stuff.
I have to worry. I don't think I really want this bread tower, actually. I think I'd rather have the check.
Did anyone catch what went wrong here? I actually had to watch this multiple times, so let's do a quick repeat.
Coconut bread from Thailand.
Yes, sir.
Cool.
Right.
Ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am. Sorry, my bad, sir.
So Tino is mad because the waiter said sir. Well, it's kind of hard to call you a man when you look like a sir, and Tino knows that people will make this mistake, which is why tons of misgendering videos are on Tino's channel.
I just want to tell you that the person who gave me this called me sir.
Like, see, like, here's the thing. Like, this guy who made the video earlier, yeah, the guy who made this video earlier in the video said that, you know, we don't really care about, you know, the individuals, you know, we just care about the activists who are annoying. Well, when someone going out in this manner is considered normal and just acceptable, like, oh, just an individual, he's not hurting anyone, what do you think that does to culture? Why do you think we have this problem? Because this is just like, we're supposed to accept this. Like, oh, it's normal. He's just doing his own thing. You know, he's not affecting anyone. No, he's completely poisoning the culture. Okay? That's the real core of this problem when it comes to what, aside from psychology, I guess culture is related to psychology, but aside from each person having their own individual things to reconcile, which includes me, that person, every other person, and our results coming from whatever experience we had when we were younger will vary, but culturally, this shouldn't be culturally acceptable. Not hate speech. This is a high-level philosophical discussion. I am not making any personal attacks. Okay? But the solution is not this liberal idea of like, oh, well, just let everyone do whatever they want, but don't make me do anything. It's like, that doesn't work. Okay?
Call me sir. It's just like, it kind of just hurts a lot to get called sir. Thank you.
Like, why?
I'm not sir.
Nothing like a good misgendering. It is a knife in the gut when I get called sir. It hurts more though, and it's not intentional because it means like this is sir to him.
Yeah, you look like a guy dressing like a girl. At least that one person earlier, like the blonde, looked like a girl. Like, you could pass it off, but like,
Yeah, it's such a knife to the gut that you keep intentionally putting yourself in these situations and film them happening over and over again. Even with the feigned politeness, everyone knows that you're doing this on purpose. And not just that, but Tino has openly talked about not actually caring about being called sir.
Look, I don't need your approval to love my face. But honestly, keep these comments coming because they really don't bother me in the way that you think they bother me, and they boost engagement on my stuff, so keep at it.
A bunch of people saying sir in the comments is what's being responded to. So now we know that Tino bullying people is completely about getting attention. But let's go back to that bread video for a second.
We're supposed to say friend or just not use gendered language. It's like a pretty big thing that Disney has done.
It looks like that one swimmer who's trying to be a girl.
Nothing was wrong with bread. I just don't want it anymore. Just because they apologize doesn't mean she doesn't feel sad or offended. Yeah. Exactly, right? Like, if you've accidentally ever hurt someone and say, I'm so sorry, it was an accident, do you expect them to be like, oh, it was an accident? Of course, no problem whatsoever. All of that hurt is now undone. That's not how it works.
Sorry about what happened.
It's okay. I would love to pay for the drink, please.
No, the drink is on me too, so...
You don't are you sure?
You're good, yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Now you can see why Tino does this. Any narcissist would treat waiters like that if they got free food and special treatment from it. You do understand they had to throw all that food out, right? However, I don't know if you guys caught this, but the waiter had an accent, meaning that English is not his first language, so he probably is not all that privy to the pronoun BS because it's esoteric speech. I mean, if there's any indication that he doesn't understand what's going on, it's that he immediately says sir again after being told to say ma'am. And the whole subtext of this is that this guy spends all this time learning English, and then Tino is out here threatening his livelihood over a minor mistake. That's why you got the free drink. It's because he's afraid of a sociopath like you causing a scene and getting him fired. Especially considering that this occurred at Disneyland, so you know that if the waiter stands up for himself, the company is not going to back him. So really this person...
Again, that's another cultural thing. Right? That's why nothing is going to work. That's why nothing is going to change. Because this is not an individual problem. Making videos... The reason I'm making this a cultural thing, and like a philosophical high-level thing, because me making a video, for example, about Lily Tino, or whatever the hell the dude's name is, and saying, "Oh, look at this person. Like, this is crazy. You know, this person's insane." That does nothing. That does very little to actually do anything about the culture. So you notice in this video, it's not really about that person specifically. It's about the broader assessments I'm making, in the hope that this video will reach people, and then they'll start changing their mindsets. Not from, because I feel like there's a bit of too much of preaching to the choir. The hell? My phone just died? No, it didn't. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Yeah, don't mind the pink bag. I use that for business. Okay. Is that the right height? Yeah, that's good. Okay. Hey guys, this is my office room, so got a bunch of stuff in here. Anyways, so
Is just making money.
okay, close that. So the point I was making about let me this down ever so slightly. Okay. Yeah, so the point I'm making is about I don't want this to be a video where I preach to the choir and I just get people to laugh. I actually want people to think about what will actually change the culture, what will actually change what's going on beyond just essentially just making fun of people. And I like making fun of people. I mean, you see me making fun of people in this video, but that's not all I do, right? I want to do a bit more than that.
Money off of bullying foreigners and using transgenderism as a shield after being abusive, because that's what this is. It's abuse. And abuse seems to be kind of a foundational strategy of trans activists. Tino has a lot of this type of content, as well as stuff that progressively gets creepier.
Made it into Disney World. I don't really know what the deal is with bathrooms. No, Florida is really conservative. I don't know what the rules are. Trans women are allowed to be in women's bathrooms, but I'm about to go and use the bathroom because I have to tinkle. If I get stopped, I get stopped, I guess. But I'm a woman, so I'm going to use the women's bathroom, and being in Florida or being in California or wherever isn't going to stop me.
For one, it's already cringe to be a Disney adult. Two, not only is there this fetishizing with trans people of lying about their status in the hopes of tricking straight men, but there's also a fetishizing of using women's bathrooms. Here's a whole office of biological males filming in the women's bathroom.
Yeah, and this is why it's a psychological problem, because on paper there should be no extreme benefit from either any of these things this guy just mentioned, but there is, because it's like a form of validation. It's a form of attention. Right? Mainly validation, but when they go on the internet and talk about it, that's attention. So validation, attention. Put those together. That's the soul searching for something. That's what it's looking for. Because there's some void there of a lack of validation, a lack of attention. And a lot of people have this. I mean, most people, I would say most people I talk to have some sort of relationship with validation, and it will create these weird desires for different things. Like for me, I mean, porn was one addiction I had, and that had to do with validation, because I mean, porn is a loneliness / validation / it's validation, but specifically from like a feminine aspect, because we project like feminine desires onto the content we watch, or hopefully did watch, and that's my case. Some people haven't, which is fine. Work on it. I've talked about it in other places. If you happen to have a problem with that, join the Discord. I'll help you out. But in any case, it's a psychological problem. So they don't necessarily, like, when we go like, well, how do they gain so much, why do they love, being in the woman's bathroom and, making these videos where they get misgendered for attention? Like, why do they actually like doing these things? It's not about any of the actions. It's about a void they have. So until that person delves into their psychological voids, which everyone has, specifically when they haven't worked on it, until that person delves into that, they're never going to change. You could bring as many facts, you bring as many details to them as possible. But at the end of the day, they're looking at a white wall and saying it's blue. So you got to delve into the assumptions. And the problem is these people are never going to go through any form of good therapy. I'm not a fan of regular therapy. But I am a fan of figuring out why you believe what you believe and how to alter it in your mind, right? But until these people do that, they're never going to change. Or until some kind of shocking event happens.
And I can't
It's kinda
imagine
sad.
how unnerving it must
Which is why the culture needs to change, because the culture changing would prevent this from even starting.
be for women to have to share this space with people who are obviously biological men.
Oh, I go where I please. I will continue to go into women's restrooms, women's locker rooms, women's spaces, because I am a woman, whether you like it or not. And there's nothing you can do about it. I go where I please. And so far, nobody's had the guts to even try and stop me.
No one
Yeah, so again, this is the problem with the worldview of like, well, just let people do whatever they want. It's okay, as long as it doesn't affect me. Because, yeah, it's true. You can make an argument saying that him going to a woman's bathroom affects a woman there. But how do you even get to that point in the first place? It's when you validate this position. It's when you validate this ideology. When you say that, oh, they can do it on their own time, you're validating the ideology, whether you like it or not. You're validating the concepts that come with it. Okay? So, the only way out of this is changing the culture to a more conservative culture that says, well, this is wrong. That's it.
has tried to stop you because it's a bunch of women who have like half your strength, and they don't want to risk you being a psycho who will violently beat them if they speak up about you using the women's bathroom.
You're gonna give me my fucking money back. Excuse me, sir. There's a young man in here. You watch him out.
Well, excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
They aren't protesting because they're afraid.
That guy's got more testosterone than Dean Withers.
And what really should happen is that people should just stop going to places with mixed bathrooms. Oh, and speaking of borderline predator behavior, Tino loves to go to Disneyland to explain how transgender surgery works with kids in the background and child-friendly metaphors.
Last summer, I got my cake pops removed, and the plan up until recently was to get my marshmallow wand reconfigured into a marshmallow tunnel. The outside of...
Yeah, so it's pretty obvious why he's doing this, because why else? Okay, let's not be stupid. I would contend, okay, and you could say throughout this video, like, oh, well, you're making a lot of assumptions about people, and like, how do you know these things? I'll clarify when I'm making a more nuanced point that could be, I think, is more likely to be in question than, say, another point I make. But I know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about these things. Not only have I worked with people, but I've studied a lot, right? And not like secular retard psychology, okay? Actual good stuff. And also with a background in like philosophy and stuff. I would be surprised if there wasn't some kind of S12, okay? You know what I'm talking about, trauma associated. Because, I mean, that's kind of the coping mechanism a lot of people make regarding that type of thing. Not only do they end up, you know, liking a certain group of people, but they also end up a lot of the time with some sort of identity. They end up with some sort of identity problem, and the gender you are is heavily tied to your identity. Because, I mean, if, like, for example, when we talk about my identity, masculinity is going to come up because I see myself as a man. That's an identity statement. It's an ego statement, right? A woman will think they're a woman. So that will tie into their identity. When this type of thing happens to you as a kid, it creates identity problems, and now those problems can leak into gender. Your own gender identity. And especially now, because of the way it's propped up, it's seen as an escape out of what happened. So it's like the ego departing from the shadow, which has the trauma, the thing that's denied and repressed. The ego just keeps going farther and farther and farther out. So here's a little mini psychology thing for you. Not necessarily set in stone, but I'd be surprised.
The wand is what becomes the inside of the tunnel.
This person needs to be put on a watch list. I think no one would be shocked if there are some skeletons in Tino's closet. These topics aren't appropriate for young kids.
Hi, friends. Today we're going to talk about something super important. What it means to be transgender. It's a big word, but I promise that it's easy to understand. Ready to learn? The first thing I want you to do is close your eyes. Now think, do you feel like a boy, a girl, or a little bit of both?
For those of you who don't know what's going on, this is a parody of Miss Rachel, who is a very popular creator for very young kids. A friend of mine has a 2-year-old, and I caught an episode while he was visiting where she was teaching toddlers how to say no, so that was great. Well, maybe it's annoying to parents, but probably very useful if they ever meet someone like Lily Tino. And I'm not just making allegations here. Tino literally has an OnlyFans account and advertises that account in the same area where the videos targeted at children can be viewed. How is this not a crime? Can you see why people are mad?
Okay, so here's another thing. If you don't ground things, okay, if you're like a liberal who's like, well, you know, people should do whatever they want, you can't say that they shouldn't teach this stuff to kids. Want to know why? Because you believe, I assume, if you're someone who says that, I assume you believe that you can teach kids that a man and woman are supposed to be together, right? You can show that two men being, not two men. Well, I mean, logically speaking, I mean, I'd say that would be the case if you follow this line of logic, but a man and a woman being together, right? You can show them that. It's totally fine. But then when it's two men together, it's like, no, 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 you can't do that. Why not? Is it wrong? Okay, well, that's a moral statement. How do you ground your morality? You kind of start departing from this liberal worldview. You start actually having I would say, a conservative worldview where you have rights and wrongs, and you need God for that. So again, I'm saying this is a cultural and ideological issue. You can't pick out these individual points and then just say, well, these little things are wrong, and then, you know, if you just want to do it, it's okay. It doesn't work.
Now, stuff like this happens over and over again, and this information gets pushed on younger and younger people way before it's age appropriate, and now they have stuff like this.
Applications are open for Brave Trails 2025. Whether you're new or returning, get ready for an unforgettable summer in California, New York, or Georgia. Brave Trails is the summer camp for LGBTQ+.
All these people are just searching for a purpose, bro.
Youth ages 12 to 17 with creative programming.
That's why they do all these different things. That's why they have such weird hair. That's why they have such weird nose piercing. That's why they look so weird. Because they really desire purpose and meaning. They desire to be their own person. They desire validation. Now, it may seem like I'm an apologist for these people. And to some degree I am, because at the end of the day, they are humans. So I do care about them. I'm not only morally obligated, but I actually do care about them to some degree. Even though, you know, make jokes about them, right? And from that caring, a lot of people will then say, well, but it's okay. I'm not saying it's okay, but what I'm saying is that in order for them to change, this is what's going to happen. And that comes from a place of caring.
Gender-neutral housing and affirming spaces to be your true self.
Wait, so you're gonna put a bunch of boys and girls with cameras in mixed housing? They're going to change and sleep in the same area with an age difference from 12 to 17? You don't see a problem with that? Unfortunately, I don't think they do. And what's funny is that I'm old enough to remember that back in 2020, I made a video about them medically transitioning kids, and I got gaslit like crazy with a bunch of wokies in the comments saying, no, they're just socially transitioning kids. They don't get medical treatment until they're adults.
Yeah, and that's supposed to be okay. So that's another problem. Like, some people say, well, I don't think anyone says a social trend. So, I don't know, I guess they're just dumb. They don't understand the criticism, because I don't even think the people who say, like, do whatever you want, believe in a social transitioning either. But, yeah, the social transitioning is not any better than the physical transitioning, if I'm going to be honest. Same thing.
At that point, there were only a handful of news stories about people medically transitioning under 18, but just 5 years later, medically transitioning kids has been completely normalized.
Estrogen treatment is irreversible and would make Josie sterile. But Josie and her mother never doubted it was the right thing until an unexpected conversation happened one afternoon.
But on the inside, where nobody else can see?
Yeah.
Are you a boy or are you a girl?
Maybe I'm a boy inside and a girl outside.
Really?
Yeah, is that true?
Only you know the answer to that.
Again, assumption of subjectivist truth. There is no truth outside of what you think in your own mind. So, in a way, this is pride. Well, pride, right? Pride. Now, what is pride built from? Pride is built from a shadow void and the ego essentially going out and creating a God complex, because this is the psyche, like this is the self, okay, this is everything in your own brain, right? And then a trauma happens or something else happens, and then you repress it, you don't want to think about it, you try running away from it, so the ego, which is supposed to be the center of the psyche, goes completely out. Okay? And that's a God complex. That's pride. Okay? Now, what can completely depart from psyche that you answer to could be the ego, it could be another person, which that's also related to ego. It could be a lot of different things, right? But the point is that that's the problem. Okay? And of course, this is why pride is called the deadly sin in the Bible. Because from there, all of the other deadly sins, all the other bad things you could do are forms of pride. Right? So, yeah, pride, and whatever, yeah, it definitely is.
Sometimes I think I'm a boy, sort of, but I'm a girl.
Dr. Olson had a decision.
You are in the perfect place to start on blockers.
And she promises to begin giving her estrogen, female hormones, in 2 years.
Around 13. That's what I think. You're not going to wait until 16 to start. You know that, okay?
A lot of times it strikes me that had this happened just 20 years ago,
Thank you.
I wouldn't have been able to give her blockers and she would have had to go through male puberty. That terrifies me. It's all done. Do you want a hug? I don't know that she would have survived male puberty.
I'm not really sure.
Yeah, because she has psychological problems that you're completely ignoring. Okay, the other reason why this is wrong is because, okay, the ego is departing from the shadow. And the shadow is like all your repressed elements. Okay, so when you validate that, you're making it go even farther out. So you're confounding the problem. Okay, you're making it way worse. All right, the whole point is you're supposed to dissolve the ego so it can come back to the middle, face all the problems you have, face everything you hate about yourself and all the things that happen to you, and then integrate it through transmutation, and then you're on the process of becoming, orienting your higher self towards God, and then actually becoming the person that you could be happy being and, do good things for the world, right? But so this makes it even worse. It's just not a solution.
How these people have it in their head that it's okay to allow a young child to make a permanent decision like that, especially considering that the child expressed pretty heavy doubt, and maybe that's...
Yeah, so again, this is another problem. Grown-up decision. No, this shouldn't be allowed, period. Kid, adult, no, because you're feeding a mental illness. Not hate speech, that was a joke. Okay, YouTube?
It's the best cue to not put your kid on life-altering medications when they turn 13.
Seems more like we're experimenting on children like the Nazis did, though.
It does seem a little suspect, I agree.
I mean, imagine if a Nazi scientist came forward and said, but the kids really want it.
The one thing that keeps me happy is that we're moving closer to a place where eventually people who do this are going to start getting punished for it, especially since Twitter got bought and stories like these aren't being suppressed anymore.
I had facial feminization surgery. I had sex reassignment surgery. I was on HRT for 17 years. Now I'm on a combo dose because I can't go off. I have multiple health conditions from transitioning young and for transitioning for so long.
This person has to take medication.
Yeah, if you're a dude, taking testosterone isn't that good for you. Okay, maybe there's certain situations where you can justify it, but like if I decided to hop on a nice good old TRT dose, that wouldn't be very good for my health. Okay? So imagine being a dude and then taking like forget being a kid or an adult. It's just not good for you. Okay? So I don't really like the distinction about making about kids. It is worse when it's kids. But it's not bad because it's kids. It's bad because you shouldn't be doing it in the first place.
Permanently, despite regretting the transition because of the damage that transitioning caused. And it's sick because the activist community loves to pretend that none of these drugs like hormone blockers had any side effects.
So what was it for you that kind of woke you up to this isn't what I should have done?
I found out that homosexual transition was environmentally caused in almost every single case by childhood sexual assault or by internalized homophobia or failed boy syndrome. People are being lied to when they're being diagnosed. They're not being diagnosed with what actually causes the gender dysphoria. They're just being diagnosed with a symptom of a problem.
Yeah, exactly.
And there are multiple problems that cause those symptoms. And when you don't appropriately diagnose people, you lead them into a life of ruin. All of these interventions are permanent, they're irreversible, and they lied to me.
I don't know if...
Right, and I agree with that point, but I would also add on that, because that's like a secular psychology point of view where it's kind of materialism assumption. It's just your brain. That's it. It's just brain. And so talk about brain chemicals or whatever. It's deeper than that. It's about the soul, which is a non-physical thing that exists outside your body but does relate to your body. That's what it's about.
If the numbers are that high, but sexual abuse history sure is commonly reported amongst people who transition, as well as symptoms of it like drug abuse and homelessness. Now, the age-old thing that the activists like to say is that you could end the life of a trans person by misgendering them. However, if you look at the studies that they cite, the people in the high-risk categories are very often drug abusers or homeless, and HRT is not going to fix that.
And they don't care about the people who are indoctrinated, who are harmed by this loosey-goosey system where you can walk into a therapist in 15 minutes and be given a gender dysphoria diagnosis.
Right.
Yeah, and we also have to take back psychological realm. Because the therapists and all these other people, they're just terrible. And that's because it's a secular field and it's a very feminist oriented field. And it also has to be rooted in God as well for it to work. Because, I mean, psychology, in terms of, like, when you believe in a material worldview where there's no non-physical mind, it's just your body and that's it, it makes psychology a retarded endeavor. Because how can you fix brain chemicals through talking about things and trying to, write it on papers and stuff? It doesn't work. Okay, at that point, you need medicine, right? Medicine. You gotta take pills. See where this leads? It's not in the business of actually fixing problems because it's not designed in a way that allows for it. The framework of therapists and psychologists is a framework that is secular and assumes only the material body. So, yeah, of course we're not going to talk about the things that we would say actually matters because, well, to them it doesn't even exist. So, yeah, give them some pills when they could have fixed it by working with their mind. Yeah.
They don't care at all. I think when Lily Tino makes a video addressed as Miss Rachel, that's not about educating people. It's about trying to find the next viral trend to build popularity and promote the OnlyFans account. I think these people rarely, if ever, talk about people who regret transitioning. In fact, I've heard rumors that on Reddit, such people are shunned from the transgender forums. But the nefarious part with kids is that kids are easily manipulated, will often do what they think will impress their parents, and they have no life experience. They've only been around for a few years, so how are they supposed to know at 11 what their desires are going to be at 30 or 40 or 50? Where are the adults? Adults are supposed to be around as advisors to prevent kids from doing stuff they might regret in the long term. In fact, as a society,
Well, adults believe that, well, if they wanted to, they could. So that's why this liberal thing doesn't work either, because when you say, well, when you're an adult and you can do it on your own, like, it doesn't affect anyone, you can do it. Well, this inevitably leads to kids doing it eventually. Okay, because they're going to end up justifying it. Because, like, oh, it's such an important decision. Because of what they characterize it as when they're an adult. And we're supposed to be okay with that because they're their own person. But when you accept that, then of course they're going to start bringing it to kids. I mean, that's just the logical entailment.
I think it's people's responsibility to prevent those around them from making stupid decisions. A lot of people's dumb choices could be stopped if they didn't have a shitty friend group. You want people in your life who will sit you down and talk you through major decisions and give you corrective feedback. People need the feedback of others to know how to behave appropriately. It's something that I'm sure these narcissistic activists are missing in their lives. So let's do them all the favor of not appeasing their BS. Anyway, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.
All right. That was a pretty good video. So, I think I've made all my points very clear. Thank you for watching. If you want to talk to me at all, join the Discord. Pretty active there. And I'll see you in the next one. And also check out the main channel. Big video coming up soon.